Hello and welcome to GameRules.com. My name is Mark, and today I'm going to teach you how to play Phase 10. This is a progressive rummy card game for 2 to 6 players, in which players are trying to collect and build specific sorts of sets of cards in order to end the round. In each round, there is a different contract or a different requirement for what they need to do. The first player to make it through all 10 contracts or phases wins the game. Let's dive in and learn how to play. Out of the box, you will get a 108 card deck, 2 reference cards, and the instructions. Now, the object of Phase 10 is to be the first player to get through all 10 phases. If more than one player completes Phase 10 during the same round, it is the player with the lowest score who wins. Now, this game plays up to 6 players, but only 2 reference cards were included, so they will need to be shared. It should be pointed out that the back of the box also has all 10 phases, so a player could use that as a reference card also. The deck is composed of 108 cards. There are wild cards and skip cards and colored number cards. Each phase will require the player to create different sorts of melds, either sets or runs or all of the same color. A set is 2 or more cards of the same number. So here on the left, we have a set of 3s, and here on the right, we have a set of 6s. All of the melds can use as many wild cards as the player wishes, but the meld must include at least 1 number card. A run is made up of 4 or more cards in sequential order, and runs can be made up of any color combination. So they could be all the same color, or they could all be different colors, but they must be in sequential order. So here on the left is an example of a run, numbered 1 through 4. And here on the right, we have an example of a run using wild cards, 6, 7, 8, 9. Again, runs may use as many wild cards as the player wishes, but there must be at least 1 number card in that meld. There is one more sort of meld that you're required to build in the 7th phase, and that is cards all of 1 color. So as you can see here, we have a meld of cards that are all green. The cards do not have to be in numerical order. You can have more than 1 of the same number, and you can use as many wilds as you wish, as long as you have at least 1 number card. So here is a meld of green. Notice there are 2 4s and 2 wilds, yet it still counts as all of 1 color. Skips cannot be used as wild cards in this game. You will never have a skip in a meld. A skip is played in order to skip another player at the table, and we'll see how that works here in a little bit. To set up the game, determine the dealer, shuffle the deck, and deal 10 cards to each player. You can put the reference cards within eyesight of as many players as possible, so here I've spread them out across the table. For the first round of the game, everybody is competing to complete the first phase. Now, this is essentially a contract rummy game, and each phase is a contract that must be met. So for this first phase, each player is trying to get 2 sets of 3. So that would be 3 cards of a certain number. You could have 3 2s or 3 4s, or you could have 3 3s and then another set of 3 3s. You also could use your wilds to complete that phase, as I explained at the beginning of the video. The player left of the dealer will go first. We'll have our player here at the bottom of the screen go first. On your turn, you will draw a card either from the top of the draw pile or the top of the discard pile. The draw pile and the discard pile were formed after the deal. The remaining cards were placed face down, and the top card was flipped over. Our player here at the bottom of the screen is already halfway done with their phase. They have 3 8s. All they need is another set of 3. They have 2 1s already, so that 11 doesn't really help them, so they'll draw from the top of the draw pile. They pick themselves up a 9. They'll go ahead and add that to their hand, and they will discard this 10. At the end of the round, players are going to earn points for the cards left in their hand. So when you have cards that are not helping you meet your phase, you will want to discard the highest ones possible, making your hand total as low as possible. After a player discards, play passes left. Our player here on the left side of the screen has already met the contract for the round. They have the phase finished with 3 11s, including a wild there, and 3 12s. So this player, again, is going to begin their turn by drawing. They'll take the top card from the stock and add that into their hand. The stock is just another word for draw pile. And then, if you're able to lay your phase down after drawing, you may do so. In fact, you want to do so because the goal is to get these phases done as quickly as possible. So they go ahead and lay their 2 sets down on the table. Now, since they have played their phase to the table, the 2 sets of 3, they are allowed to do what's called hitting. And hitting is laying off their cards from their hand. Well, they drew a 12, so that actually can get added to their set of 12s. And they do not have any other 11s, so they can't add to the 11. Nobody else at the table has played their phase to the table, so there's nothing else for them to do. They end their turn by discarding the 9. Player 3 now takes their turn, and they're going to go ahead and draw from the top of the stock. They draw a 2. This can go into their hand right there. They have not met their phase. They do have a wild, which allows them to get half the phase done in a couple different numbers, but they are ultimately going to have to end their turn by discarding. And we will move on to player 4. And here's where you'll see how a skip works. So player 4 has a couple 7s, a couple 3s. They do not need this 9, so they're going to go ahead and draw. They got another skip. There's nothing more they can do except discard. And if you're wanting to use a skip, you must do that during the discard part of your turn. When you play a skip, you do not play it to the discard pile. Instead, you put it near the person you want to skip. Since player 2 has already laid down their phase for the round, player 4 wants to skip them. So the skip card is put in front of that player. On their next turn, they will be skipped. That ends player 4's turn, and now it is player 1's turn again. Let's go ahead and play through another round. You will see how that skip resolves and what happens when more than one player has laid down their phase. So here we have player 1's turn again. They draw from the draw pile and they get a wild card. They are now able to meet their phase for the round. They have 3 8s and 3 1s. We'll go ahead and put those off to the side here. And now that they have played their phase to the table, they are allowed to hit on their own phase as well as their opponent's. So their opponent over here has 3 12s and 3 11s. They look at that and they do not have any 12s or any 11s in their hand, so they cannot play on their melds. And they do not have any more 1s or 8s in their hand, so they cannot hit on their own meld. So this brings their turn to a close, and they're going to go ahead and discard this green 9. Play passes left. Player 2 has the skip card in front of them, so they will not get to play this turn. The skip card resolves by being placed on top of the discard pile. This skip card cannot be picked up by the next player. It is essentially a blocking card, and the next player will have no choice but to pick up from the draw pile. So player 3 draws and they get a 2, which allows them to complete the phase. They have their set of 2s and their set of 4s using a wild. So they will go ahead and place this phase down on the table. And just to keep things orderly, let's go ahead and place it off to the side here. And now they have the opportunity to hit and add their unused cards to any other player's phase, which they can. They can add their 12 to this player's set of 12s, and they can add this 1 to this player's set of 1s down here at the bottom. And that is where they'll have to end their turn because there are no 3s, 6s, or 7s out on the table. So they'll end their turn by discarding a 7. So let's fast forward here to player 2's turn. Let's go ahead and have them draw to begin their turn. They drew a 5. They are able to play this 4 over here on player 3's meld. And they are able to play their 1s down here on player 1's meld. And they will end their turn and end the round by discarding their final card. As soon as a player has no cards left in their hand, the round ends. Now that can be done by discarding or by hitting all of the cards from their hand onto phases on the table. When the round comes to an end, the player who emptied their hand will move on to the next phase, as well as earn 0 points for the round. Any player who laid their phase down, but still has cards remaining in their hand, will move on to the next phase, but they will earn points for the cards remaining in their hand. And finally, any player who does not get their phase laid down will have to try again to complete that phase during the next hand, and they will earn points for all the cards in their hand. Cards 1 through 9 are worth 5 points each. Cards 10 through 12 are worth 10 points each. The skip is worth 15 points, and the wild is worth 25 points. So in this example, our player who went out earns 0 points. Player 3 earns 10 points, 5 for each card. Player 4 earns 65 points for the round. And player 1 earns 20 points. After the score for the round has been tallied, collect all of the cards. The deal passes left to the next player. They will shuffle and deal out 10 cards to each player again. Any player who moved on will complete the next phase. So for this game, phase 2 would be 1 set of 3 and 1 run of 4. And the player who did not complete that first phase will have to try again. So they'll still be trying to get 2 sets of 3. It will be helpful if the scorekeeper keeps track of contracts for the players on the score pad. Again, contract being the phase that the player must complete. Play like that continues until one player or more is able to complete the 10th phase during a round. As soon as a round ends with the 10th phase being completed, the game comes to an end, and the first player to do that wins. If more than one player completes that 10th phase, it is the person with the lowest score that wins the game. And that's how to play phase 10. So this is the classic game. It's been out for years, easy to find, $6 or $7. And if you like Rummy, I recommend picking it up. The addition of the skip cards does take that element that a lot of people don't enjoy, but I do. And people who play games like this and Uno, they're going to enjoy it. So I recommend giving it a shot. Now, from experience, playing all 10 phases with a larger group can take forever. And that's probably one of the biggest complaints about the game. You don't have to play all 10 contracts. You can play a certain number. You can pick 3 of the best. You can pick whichever ones you enjoy and limit it to that. And that makes for a much speedier game. You also can play where every round the entire group goes to the next contract no matter what. And whoever has the fewest points at the end of the game wins. Well, if you'd like to check out how to play more card games, I've got a playlist for you right here. And if you found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe, ring the bell, give this video a thumbs up, and leave a comment down below. All of those things really help us out. Until next time, keep on playing.